Every few seconds you perform an action so ordinary that you almost never think about it. You inhale, and then you exhale. Nothing seems remarkable about it, until you stop, because within minutes the brain begins to fail. Soon after, the heart follows, and without oxygen, the machinery that keeps you alive starts to collapse. But here's the strange part. For much of Earth's history, oxygen was not the gas of life, it was poison, a dangerous molecule capable of damaging cells and destroying delicate biological structures. And yet today, every thought you have, every heartbeat, every movement, and every memory depends on it. How did one of nature's most destructive molecules become the foundation of human life? And what exactly happens inside your body when you take a breath? The answer leads to one of the greatest transformations in the history of our planet, and to a microscopic world hidden inside every one of your cells. Right now, as you listen to these words, trillions of chemical reactions are taking place inside your body. None of them would be possible without oxygen. Your brain consumes it, your muscles consume it, your liver consumes it, your heart consumes it. Every second, billions of cells are extracting energy from nutrients using a process so efficient that evolution has relied upon it for hundreds of millions of years, and all of it begins with something so simple that we rarely notice it: breathing. But to understand why oxygen matters, we need to travel back more than 2 billion years. At that time, Earth was a very different world. There were no animals, no plants, no forests, and almost no oxygen in the atmosphere. The first forms of life survived without it. In fact, oxygen was toxic to many of them. Then something extraordinary happened. Primitive microorganisms evolved the ability to capture energy from sunlight. Photosynthesis was born, and as a byproduct, these tiny organisms began releasing oxygen into the oceans and atmosphere. Over millions of years, oxygen accumulated. For countless ancient species, this was a catastrophe. The event became known as the Great Oxidation Event. Entire ecosystems disappeared. But for a few organisms, oxygen represented something else, an opportunity, because oxygen possessed a remarkable property. It allowed cells to extract vastly more energy from food. The evolution of aerobic respiration changed everything. Complex life became possible, eventually leading to plants, animals, and ultimately humans. And inside every one of your cells, remnants of that ancient revolution still exist. They're called mitochondria, tiny structures so important that they are often called the power plants of the cell. But mitochondria are far more than simple batteries. According to one of the most fascinating theories in biology, they were once independent organisms. Ancient bacteria that entered primitive cells and formed a partnership that transformed life forever. Today, trillions of mitochondria work continuously inside your body, especially in organs with enormous energy demands: the brain, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and the muscles. Their mission is simple: convert nutrients into usable energy. But the process itself is astonishingly complex. When you eat carbohydrates, fats, or proteins, they are broken down into smaller molecules. Eventually, many of these molecules are converted into compounds that enter the mitochondria. There, a sequence of reactions begins. Electrons are stripped away, chemical bonds are rearranged, and high-energy molecules are generated. The final and most important stage is known as oxidative phosphorylation. Hidden within the inner membranes of the mitochondria lies an extraordinary molecular machine, the electron transport chain. Electrons flow through a series of proteins like tiny packets of energy. Their movement pumps hydrogen ions across the membrane, creating an electrochemical gradient, a microscopic reservoir of potential energy. Then another molecular machine enters the process, a TP synthase, a rotating biological motor so elegant that scientists have compared it to a nanoscale turbine. As hydrogen ions flow back through it, ATP molecules are produced. A TP, adenosine triphosphate, the true energy currency of life. The average human body produces and consumes enormous quantities of ATP every single day. Yet, at any given moment, only a tiny amount is stored, which means your cells must manufacture it continuously, second after second, without interruption. Every movement you make, every signal traveling through your nervous system, every heartbeat, every muscle contraction, every thought depends on ATP, and oxygen is the final recipient of the electrons at the end of this chain. Without oxygen, the entire system comes to a halt. ATP production collapses, and cells begin to fail. But oxygen itself cannot simply diffuse everywhere, it needs transportation. And that responsibility falls to one of the most remarkable molecules in biology: hemoglobin. Inside red blood cells, millions of hemoglobin molecules circulate continuously through your bloodstream. Each one contains iron atoms capable of binding oxygen molecules. As blood passes through the lungs, oxygen enters the bloodstream and attaches to hemoglobin. Then, carried by the beating heart, it travels to every tissue in the body. Where oxygen concentrations are lower, hemoglobin releases its cargo, delivering life exactly where it is needed. The brain is particularly dependent on this process. Although it represents only a small fraction of body weight, it consumes about 20% of the body's oxygen supply. Neurons are extraordinarily active cells, constantly transmitting electrical signals, maintaining ion gradients, producing neurotransmitters. All of this requires enormous amounts of ATP, and therefore oxygen. The heart faces a similar challenge. Cardiomyocytes contract continuously day and night, without rest, year after year. Their mitochondria occupy a large fraction of the cell volume, producing the energy required to sustain every heartbeat throughout an entire lifetime. Even while you sleep, billions of these cells continue working tirelessly. But oxygen is not without risks. Its remarkable reactivity, which makes efficient energy production possible, also creates danger. During normal metabolism, small amounts of highly reactive molecules known as reactive oxygen species are generated. These compounds can damage proteins, DNA, and cellular membranes. This phenomenon is called oxidative stress. Fortunately, life evolved powerful defenses. Antioxidant enzymes continuously neutralize these dangerous molecules, maintaining a delicate balance between energy production and cellular protection. A balance that has been refined through hundreds of millions of years of evolution. And yet, the human body is remarkably adaptable. In environments where oxygen becomes scarce, extraordinary mechanisms come into play. People living at high altitudes provide an incredible example. Over time, their bodies increase red blood cell production. Blood vessels remodel themselves. Cells alter their metabolism, and tissues become more efficient at extracting oxygen. Even breathing patterns change, and the lungs and heart gradually adapt, allowing life to persist under conditions that would challenge those living at sea level. Every breath you take is therefore much more than the movement of air. It is the continuation of an ancient partnership between oxygen and life, a process born from one of the greatest revolutions in Earth's history, and sustained by trillions of microscopic machines hidden inside your cells. Machines that never sleep, never pause, and quietly transform the oxygen you breathe into the energy that powers your thoughts, your memories, your emotions, and your existence itself. Because perhaps one of the most extraordinary truths about being alive is this: you are not simply breathing to survive. You are feeding a civilization of trillions of cells, and with every breath they answer with something extraordinary: life itself.